Welcome back to another episode of the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. He's Antonio Rossetti. I'm Justin Stewart. We're coming from you from the Center for Media Innovation here at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh. Just a reminder before we get started, you can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast from. Just search the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. Check out some of our past episodes, especially with the ones we've had guests on. One of our most recent episodes was the Iron Eagle interview. Play-by-play man for NFL, NBA, March Madness, the whole 9 yards. That was a fun interview to do. I also just posted recently an interview with Hannah Mears. I kind of mentioned that in previous episodes, but I finally got around to doing it and posting it, so that's up as well. Listen to our past interviews, whether it's AJ Woods, One Way Out, Joe Klimchek, pretty much anyone. Just go on our podcast page, Spotify, wherever that may be that you listen to our podcast, and just play those. They're all pretty good interviews. I'm not just saying it because I'm on the podcast myself, but I thoroughly enjoyed all of them and just getting to know these people a little bit better. And with that, though, out the way, Tony, how you doing today?
Doing okay. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I just been... Yeah, picked up a stick time earlier today. Just played some hockey. Nothing special. Just got my legs going and stuff like that. And I've taken it easy. Didn't do too much on the 4th of July. But yeah, how about you?
I'm good. I actually was here yesterday as well, doing like a weekly meeting for like my internship, and I actually ran into someone Elizabeth Perry.
Yeah.
From the Gazette 2.0. She was like, when we were doing the lecture part, she like sat at the table with me, and we were just conversing back and forth. And then like she was, do you have a sports podcast? I was like, I might have one. Why? He's like, oh, do you know? I was like, do you know Antonio Rossetti? He's like, oh yeah, of course. So yeah, that was no. She's pretty chill though. And she does have a weird sense of humor, but no, she's cool for the most part. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you too. But otherwise, though,
I write for that paper.
You do.
I do. I write for 2 papers.
You do. You are a very busy man. You know, you do this. You have your other job too, and then you do that stick time. I don't know how you've managed to fit all that in though, but you do. And I guess the grind never stops in the Rossetti household. That's all I could say.
It doesn't. Nope. No days off.
No days off.
Yeah, but yeah. I'm going to get right into it. Quick hitter right here. Ty Domi's son. Okay, well, let's talk about Ty Domi first. For those of you who watch hockey, I'm sure you're familiar with the Goon. Ty Domi played late 90s, early 2000s, up until like about 05, 06. I remember watching him play as a kid. He's known for, so there was a fan, threw water on him, and then he threw water back at him, and he grabbed the fan and pulled him over the penalty box, pulled him into the penalty box. I heard outside of it, Ty Domi is a really good guy, though, too. But he was just a goon on the ice. And, yeah, I mean, you just get competitive when you're out there. But that's besides the point. We're talking about, right here, the Toronto Maple Leafs, a franchise that hasn't won in a long time, but they're a renowned franchise, obviously an Original Six team. Following in the footsteps of his dad, they got a pretty solid player in Max Domi. So I just wanted to say it's going to be interesting to see another Domi. And, it's my quick hitter. Just someone following in that footsteps. It's pretty cool to see. And, I hope he is allowed to wear number 28 and stuff. Hopefully no one, as of right now, I don't think anyone has 28 for the Maple Leafs. So hopefully he picks that number, because that would be pretty cool to see another Domi out there for Toronto.
Fair enough. My quick hitter, we might talk about it in the podcast, but I figured I'd bring it up now. If you guys are aware, the MLB draft is this Sunday, the first 2 rounds, I believe. And there's been a lot of speculation about what the Pirates should do at 1. And for the longest time, probably going back for a year, Dylan Cruz, he's the guy. And I still feel that way. But, Paul Skeens had a really great year at LSU. He was probably the best pitcher in college baseball. No, not probably. He was. It was by a long shot. And just reading a lot of articles, people have him as the next great pitching prospect. One of the best pitching prospects since Steven Strasburg back in 2010, 2009. And quite frankly, I'm not big on drafting pitchers just because the Tommy John factor. I mean, I know that's not really like a really good excuse or a reason not to draft someone, because he is super talented and he could be up here hypothetically very quickly. He might not be in the minors very long, but This is the Pirates we're talking about, so like it's that theory might not apply to the Pirates. I'm just saying, but I mean, my whole point is like you have Wyatt Langford too from Florida. Yeah, he's another really good outfielder, and you have Max Clark. Those are pretty much the consensus top 4 prospects. Max Clark is another outfielder, but he's still in high school, and he does have an offer to go to Vanderbilt next year. I'm saying all this is to say that the Pirates fans, while I do agree with most people that Cruz should be the pick, like I think you should prepare yourself and get ready for the fact that it might not be Cruz. It might not even be Skeens either. It might be like a Wyatt Langford or Max Clark. I know it's really unpopular to say, and I would really be against making, especially Max Clark. And it's not like anything against Max Clark. By all accounts, he has the potential to be really good as well. But I mean, guys in this draft, the Pirates, where they need to be thinking is they need to be looking at guys that can come up really quick because their window, I put that in quotation marks, I think fits more in lines with a Skeens or a Cruz, even a Wyatt Langford, because they're a little bit older and they shouldn't, in theory, take a while to get it going in the minors. But for me, it comes down to the 2 LSU guys. I think those need to be the picks. I still lean towards Cruz. You need a bat in that lineup. I mean, guys that has power, can drive in runs, play solid defense. I think Cruz fits the mold. Also, the Pirates, if you draft a Dylan Cruz, or not a Cruz, but a Paul Skeens, you put him in the front end with Mitch Keller and whoever else they have, Quentin Priester, Solamento, those guys in the minors still. I mean, you have a legit 1-2 punch there based off potential and projection. So I think all in all, I wouldn't be mad if they drafted Skeens over Cruz. I know that might be an unpopular take, but Cruz to me, it needs to be one of those 2 guys. It can't be anyone else. And I think regardless, the concern obviously is Skeens. You don't know, pitchers sometimes it doesn't take much for them to get Tommy John nowadays. We just saw it with Kumar Rocker a couple of years ago. Once again, another great pitching prospect. The Mets drafted him, did not signing him. The Rangers drafted him the following year, and now had a couple good starts. Was getting his foot wet in the minors, and now he has Tommy John surgery, so that's a big blow. And that's the risk you take drafting a pitcher who throws hard too. Didn't even mention that at all. He's a flamethrower, 100 miles per hour. But I mean, I don't know. I think as far as potential goes, Skeens is a lot higher. But I think if you want the safe bet and the guy you think is going to be very good for 15 years, I think the pick has to be Dylan Cruz, but that's just my opinion. That's my quick hitter.
Yeah, I'd like to go right into there. So I think when you're looking at the top 3 prospects, especially if you watch a lot of the tournament this year, Wyatt Langford and Dylan Cruz stole the show, but I also think with Skeens too, he's another pitcher too. I think any of these players are a number 1 pick. I really think that this top of the draft is really deep this year. So I think as long as the Pirates take one of those 3, I know you were saying Max Clark, but when you think Vanderbilt baseball, I just think off the top of my head David Price, Pedro Alvarez, Swanson. So you can never go wrong with a Vanderbilt recruit. But if you had to ask me those top three players, I think they just need to take one of those 3 seriously. And who's the 4th guy? Walker Jenkins.
Yeah, Walker
too.
Jenkins. I don't really know too much about him, so that's why I didn't speak much.
Yeah, but my thing is though, I think the top 5, including Walker Jenkins, it's a pretty deep first round. If you look at the numbers, Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford, obviously Dylan Cruz, if you look at his numbers, I mean, they're absolutely nuts. But then if you look at Wyatt Langford, they're not much different. He batted .373 with 21 homers this year. I mean, it was an absolute stud for Florida. Dylan Cruz, my dad and I were actually just talking about it. He's almost like a right-handed Harper, the way he plays and stuff like that. So, I really think that these top 3 players, even if you look at the draft where in 2021 where Henry Davis was taken, they're putting up better numbers than Henry Davis, and he was batting well over 300, had 15 home runs in college, and these players are actually managing to have better numbers, and they both made it to the pinnacle of college baseball at the College World Series. So, I mean, Yeah, in Omaha, like Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford. I mean, the one game was 24-4. These players can hit, and so I think what we're getting, and this could be a hot take, but I think like if you just look at numbers and then just the eye test and how these players play, this is a really like the top 5. I think this draft's legit, and I think that as long as the Pirates just like stay the course and take one of the 3, like it's not going to be make or break. But if I had to pick, it'd probably be Dylan Cruz. But the whole Scott Boras as his agent thing is kind of like concerning. So, but like that being said, I think Wyatt Langford would be a good bat to add in the lineup because he has insane pop as well. And Skeens too, like a good pitcher right there. I mean, Pirates honestly probably need pitching more than they need outfield depth. But for me, I just think that they like Justin said, they probably need a bat more than a pitching. But overall, the Pirates just need everything. So I just take the best player available, other than a catcher because you have Endy and Henry Davis. But Henry Davis isn't allowed to play catcher because Austin Hedges.
He's not a catcher. He's a right fielder.
I mean, it's just like you have a guy that has almost a 7 ERA up in the big leagues, and you have like your top prospect catcher playing right field. That's all I gotta say about their franchise right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if honestly, I would say in theory he would need both. You need both those players, Skeens and Cruz. I think they would both help tremendously. But this isn't the NBA draft. You can't like acquire picks in the future. Like you're stuck with a 1 first rounder. But I mean, I honestly like I said, Skeens. The really major concern is he throws hard. And guys that throw hard usually don't last as long. Just ask Steven Strasburg. But, I mean, it can be proven wrong. I mean, there is a track record out there that guys, play longer if they throw hard. It's just, he didn't really pitch much either before college, so he doesn't have that going for him, so his arm isn't as taxed like as someone that may be thrown hard in high school. But, I mean, the point still remains. He's just as likely or has a chance to have Tommy John than any other pitcher, regardless of how hard you throw. But, I mean, Dylan Cruz, to me, I think I would draft him. He's a guy that's like a middle of the lineup bat. You have him. If you draft him, you would pretty much, in theory, like solidify your outfield for the future. You would have him, Reynolds, and Sawinski, and I think that's a pretty good outfield for the most part. Now, the dilemma you would run into if you did that was, what would you do with Henry Davis and Endy Rodriguez a catcher? I mean, I think that's one of those things where I would maybe move Henry Davis to first base and then have Rodriguez be the catcher, or vice versa, have Rodriguez play the outfield or the infield, because he can play second base and outfield, I believe, Endy Rodriguez, but he's primarily a catcher. But I mean, I think those are problems you want to have, because that shows you that your farm system has depth and it has talent, and you have interchangeable pieces to switch out, and it just makes your team more versatile. And I think, the whole point of this conversation is, like, even Wyatt Langford, I mean, you can't really go wrong with the top 3 picks. Just don't do nothing, like, out of the box, like a draft like a Jacob Wilson. Well, even Jacob Wilson, listen, I mean, he was, before this, like, calendar year, he was like a hot pick for being a hot, what's the term, like a dark horse. That's the term I'm looking for. A dark horse for being a number 1 overall pick. And Jack Wilson, that's his father. So there's talent there. I mean, I'm sure there's upside with Jacob Wilson.
Plus, he was
as well.
in a similar like conference and division as like Nick Gonzalez for New Mexico State.
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
he's at Grand Canyon, which is like,
Canyon.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I just don't want them to go somewhere like really crazy, pull like a Daniel Moskos, do something really stupid like that. Don't do that. Like, it's just take the best player or one of the best players available. This isn't rocket science. You have 3, 4, maybe 5 really good options to choose from. Just don't make it harder than it needs to be. And listen, I understand the fan perspective of it, because like the Pirates have had a lot of really bad drafts over the past 30 years. I'm well aware of that. But I mean, I think in this instance with this year, I think you have to like cut them some slack regarding who they pick with the number 1 pick. There's not really a bad option, like the top 5 choices really. So either way, like it's part of like brainwashing. Fans are going to convince themselves that Dylan Cruz is like Ken Griffey Jr. or Barry Bonds. And I think he has a chance to be an all-star caliber player, don't get me wrong, but it's the same thing with Paul Skeens. Oh, he's gonna be like Randy Johnson. It's just like sometimes you just have to like dial it back and just not like get too high or low on certain players and picks just because you read like something that they did on Twitter. So that's my like way too long quick hitter for you on the MLB draft this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, and I have one more thing to add too.
Okay.
Like a lot, it's like with Tommy John. So obviously, like when you see Jordan Hicks, he blew his arm out twice because how hard he throws. But sometimes it could be just like not even how you throw. It could just be maybe how you stretch or just like your form and stuff. Because people have had like hitters have had Tommy John. Like Carl Crawford had Tommy John, Corey Seager's had Tommy John. Bryce Harper, and they're not throwing as hard as they can. So, like, it's more than just throwing hard. It could sometimes just be a freak thing. So, yeah, that's just my, like, quick take on it, though.
No, that's fair. I mean, it's not exclusive to like how hard you throw. It's not. There's a lot more goes into it though. But if you throw hard, you are at greater risk from getting Tommy John. But it doesn't mean you're gonna get it though. So, I mean, that's all I wanted to talk about for the draft as far as I'm concerned. If you wanted to add anything else, I mean, you're free to do so.
No, yeah, that's all I got for it. But we could go to NBA or we could stay in the MLB.
I mean, I think we should stay in baseball, though we can like switch to basketball.
You want my take real quick?
Sure.
Atlanta's the best team in baseball right now.
That's a hot take. Not really.
Yeah, it's like it's pretty obvious. Like the team's 58-28. They're 30 games over. Here's like some quick stats for you. So they have 166 home runs, which is on pace to break the Twins. They're actually supposed to shatter it by like what they're on pace for. They're tied for first with the Rangers in average as well. They're third with 470 RBIs as a team, and then even in pitching, they have a 3.63 ERA, which is third in the whole league, and 808 strikeouts was the fifth. When you think about it, though, you have Bryce Elder, Spencer Strider, and Charlie Morton. If you add another, starter, that team's going to be dangerous. And then if you just look at like the team as a whole, you have Matt Olson. He's up to 29 home runs. Ozzie Albies, arguably the best second baseman in baseball right now. He has 22 home runs right now. He just had 2 against Cleveland. Acuna, he has 21 home runs, 41 stolen bases, over 1 OPS. And he's batting .337 right now. He's literally running away with the NL MVP right now. And then you have 2 catchers, and Sean Murphy, Travis d'Arnaud. Murphy's batting over 300. Talk about turning your season around from Marcell Ozuna. You have Michael Harris, who has not up to 9 home runs now, who really started slow after coming back from injury. And then you have Eddie Rosario, too, who's having flashbacks of his year when he hit 32 home runs for the Twins back in 2019. And he was also on the team that broke the home run record, and now he's on the team that's on pace to do that. He has 14 home runs this year. He's on pace to hit almost 30, which would be, his second best year home run-wise. So right now, I mean, you just got a lineup just filled with power. And let's just say Eddie Rosario falls off. Let's just say Sean Murphy doesn't get another home run for a month. You got all these players on this team that could pick up the slack. They just have so much depth. Michael Harris is not a 9-hitter on any team but the Atlanta Braves. And he was batting 9th against Cleveland the other day. So that's all I got to say about the Braves. Right now, this team is the World Series team. And I think at the trade deadline, they're going to make some moves for a reliever. I mean, their bullpen's already solid. I mean, you already have, so it just, I think if they could just add like a little bit more, like other than Minter at the back end of that bullpen. And I think they have Raisel Iglesias too in the back end.
Yes.
He's their closer right now. He's actually having a pretty solid year. So if they could but I think they need to add another piece in the bullpen, add another piece in the starter. Your hitting's fine. This team, I think, could run away with the World Series, depending on how they make their deadline moves.
Yeah, I mean, just to mention it, the second best team in baseball, you could probably argue, is the Tampa Bay Rays. They play this weekend, 3-game series between them and the Rays. Them and the Braves, so that could be a World Series preview for you early in the season, or middle of the season to be exact. But just like the Braves, like they've really, they're the way they're set up long term. Not only this year, like we all know they're trying to win now, but they're gonna be good probably 5 years from now still, because like they're super young.
They're all locked up too. Albies, Acuna.
Sean Murphy's only 28. Matt Olson's only 29. Albies is only 26. Acuna is only 25, so they're Albies and Acuna. They're not even like in their prime yet. They're still like relatively young, and this is the way they've built their team, and their pitchers are young too. Like their starting pitching they have some guys that are very young. They're probably gonna be good for the next 5 to 10 years. I would not be surprised if they went like on a run like they did with the early '90s to early 2000s teams, where they were good for like 10 to 15 years straight. Like I think the Braves can. They should be probably the division favorites every year until further notice, honestly, because their team is that good. They're head and shoulders the best team in the National League. I'm not gonna go baseball because Tampa Bay, I think they've had a good year too, but I mean they're right now they're definitely the best team. I can't argue that. And that lineup, like
RC has this all-star too. I forgot to mention.
Yes,
that.
He's having a career year.
Shout out to former Pirate
Yes.
Jesse Chavez too.
Jesse Chavez, but I mean, and Charlie Morton too. But I mean, like, yeah, their lineup is nasty. It's the best lineup in baseball too. Best offensive lineup. Their pitching has the best ERA in the National League. What's there not to like about the Braves? And like you said, probably should maybe add a back end starter and a guy for the bullpen. But I mean, other than that, this team has very few flaws, if at all, and I expect them to make a very deep run into the postseason this year. So,
yeah, I mean, like, and plus, like, literally, Swanson leaves, and then Orlando Arcia comes in. The guy highly touted for Milwaukee. All of a sudden, he's batting over 300 right now, and like, it's just everyone's living up to their potential too, like Acuna and Elbies. And let's not forget about the monstrous month that Olsen had. Like, it happened last year too. Olsen was having a crap ton of doubles to begin the year. Then he heats up, hits all these home runs. Same thing happened this year, and he's up to 29 home runs, which is almost like a league high, not just an NL high. He's only 2 behind Shohei Ohtani now. So, I mean, Matt Olson is just absolutely killing it this year. And let's not forget, this guy's also a former Gold Glove first baseman too. The team defensively is really good too, especially with that outfield with Acuna. So, and I also want to say one more thing about Ozzie Albies too. I mean, how often do you see a second baseman on pace for 40 home runs? Not only that, though, Ozzie Albies is a switch hitter, too. I mean, how many switch hitting second basemen are there in the league right now? There's not a whole lot. And yet alone, he's hitting home runs on both sides of the plate. And usually it's like, oh, okay, so like, for example, I still like Brian Reynolds a lot. He's a good player, but he has nowhere near as much power right-handed compared to how he is left-handed. That's usually how it goes. For Ozzie Albies, though, I just feel like it doesn't matter what side of the plate he's on. He's like it's pretty even distributed. I haven't looked into the splits, but just from the eye test and just watching him play, like, he seems comfortable on both sides, and it seems like no matter what side you put him on, he's gonna take you yards. So, yeah, Atlanta, they're running away with this division. As for second place in that division and the wildcard teams, I mean, what a shock. I mean, the Miami Marlins right now, Jorge Soler, Luis Arias. I mean, you'd think it'd be Sandy Alcantara, who's like, the anchor of the rotation, but like it's really been, like players like Braxton Garrett and, Sixto Sanchez and players like that, Jesus Luzardo. So it's like for the Marlins right now, it's kind of interesting, but yeah, right now, I mean, they're a much better team than how the Mets are playing, especially with their production. So I wouldn't be shocked if they actually stay the course.
Yeah, I think Miami, they've built such a cushion with their record. I think they're going to be, towards the end, they're going to be in a wild card chase. You mentioned Luis Arias. He's batting 384. I don't think he's going to hit 400 this year, but the fact that you're batting 384 this late in the season is still really impressive. Jorge Soler, 22 home runs before the All-Star break. Garrett Cooper, putting up solid numbers as your first baseman.
I said Sixto Sanchez. I meant Yuri Perez. I think Sanchez is hurt.
Yeah, Perez. Perez has had a great year,
and he's only 20
years old.
Yeah, so Yuri Perez, though, like, he's going to be a Cy Young candidate in a couple of years.
Right. I mean, in their offense as a whole, like, on paper, it's not, like, awesome. But, I mean, you still have Brian De La Cruz. He's had a solid year. Jazz Chisholm was starting to heat up, but he got hurt again. That's kind of a theme. I'm just going to throw that out there, though. But, I mean, when he does play, he's a solid bat.
Yeah, they're doing it without him, though, which is even crazier.
Yeah, I mean, he should not be playing center field. I'm sorry. He's an infielder. I mean, that's just my opinion, but whatever. But, I mean, their rotation, like you said, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that Sandy Alcantara would have almost a 5 ERA, I would say the Marlins have no shot to do anything. And yet, here they are. You mentioned Luzardo, Braxton Garrett. Yuri Perez, you mentioned, is only 20 years old. He has a 2.47 ERA and 10 starts. Their bullpen's pretty solid. That's a team
Talk about lefty pitching depth, too.
They have a lot of it. Their bullpen's solid for the most part. Probably need to add another bullpen arm and maybe another starter too. Just another team if they're trying to win this year. But I mean, all in all, the Marlins. I don't think this is a great team, but you have to give them credit. They're having a great year. They're probably going to make the playoffs, if not be in it till the end, as far as the wild card chase goes. And it's really it's cool to see because Miami, they've kind of been. I don't want to say a dumpster fire, but they've had a lot of losing seasons in recent memory, really going back post-2003, honestly. And it's good to see like them play really good baseball. They've not played this well since probably 2003, and that's 20 years ago. So shout out to the Marlins. I mean, I don't think they're a great team. Like their Pythagorean wins and losses has them like under 500, so maybe there's some regression coming, but I mean, at the end of the day, what matters is wins and losses, and they're 14 games above 500 heading into the All-Star break, and they're in good shape to do damage in the second half. So we'll see how the rest of the NL East goes. I mean, the Phillies too. They start out really slow. Now they're about 7-8 games over 500. They're right there with the Marlins in that wild card race. Don't count them out either. I don't think they're going to win the World Series this year. I'm not going to say that, but I think they're going to be in the mix too. They're too talented. Their offense is solid. Nick Castellanos has had a bounce back year. Bryce Harper, hopefully he kind of gets it going as far as home runs go because he's kind of low on those right now. Hopefully Trey Turner gets it going too. If those guys can get it going, I mean, yeah, I think they can make another run. Not maybe for World Series, but maybe just to make the playoffs. And their rotation, if their guys can pitch as well as they're capable of, Zach Wheelers, the Aaron Knowles of the world, they're going to be right there too. So the NL East, it's looking like it's going to be like a 3-team race as far as like a team's vying for a playoff spot, honestly. So.
Yeah, I will say this too. Like before we move on, I move on from the Marlins, and you said that they're not a great team, which I agree. Like. But they have depth, and my thing is you don't have to be great to make the playoffs, especially with now there being 6 teams. And when you look at the outside wildcard teams like the Giants and the Brewers, I'd rather the Marlins right now, especially with the production they've had. And the thing is, on top of that too, they haven't even made any moves yet before the deadline. Like we're not even at the All-Star game yet, so. On paper, I mean, we just saw the Brewers play the other night. They're better on paper, the Miami Marlins. And if you look at the lineup too, like Jorge Soler and Luis Arias, like I don't think there's like a player on the Giants I'd take over either one of those players. Like I know Tyro Estrada, he's had a pretty good year. Casey Schmidt, I mean Patrick Bailey, Lamont Wade's had a good year. I'll give him that. But like. Yeah, I mean, they have some good players and stuff like that, but like if you look at the production of the Miami Marlins, especially that front end of their rotation, I just think I think they might be able to stay the course here. So yeah, that's just my thought. And plus, like they're in a pretty tough division too. The Giants. I mean, not saying that the Phillies division isn't bad, but like the Mets, and the Nationals, they have not been any good right now. So. But yeah, that being said, if you look at the Phillies, Nick Castellanos having a comeback year. There's a lot of reasons why they had a slow start. Rhys Hoskins is out for the year. Kyle Schwarber's batting under 200 this year. I mean, I know he didn't bat for average last year, but he was at least over 200 last year and had 46 home runs and NL lead. And then you also have Trey Turner, who is having a Jekyll and Hyde year compared to last year. He's starting to heat up a little bit, but really the people, Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto, he's also not having as good as a year, but he's still solid. And then Alec Boehm's having a pretty solid year. So that's been like your top end right there. As you can see though, like they're still in the wild card hunt. I think by the end of the year, I think there's going to be 3 teams from the AL East. I think the Phillies and the Marlins are going to, make the playoffs this year. There's just too much talent on Philadelphia, and with Miami, it's gonna have to be like Jurassic collapse. Like they're 14 games over right now, so yeah, I just think it's an interesting hunt for the playoffs right now. I think where it's at right now, though, I wouldn't be shocked if it stays there. As for like San Diego and the New York Mets, though, like the Mets, absolute dumpster fire right now. Like it's really bad. Like their bullpen has been terrible this year. It's just like players that were supposed to produce just haven't. Like even Pete Alonso's close to 30 home runs, but like he's been going on stretches where he just won't hit one, or his average will dip. Like Marte's having a solid year. It's nothing compared to his All-Star year last year. Same with Jeff McNeil. Like the guy was, I'm pretty sure he won the batting title last year, and this year, like complete drop off this year. Francisco Lindor, another player. Obviously the power is there, but like this team is just not a high average hitting team. Even Francisco Alvarez, like the whole team as a whole, and then like let's not even get into pitching too. Like the pitching's just been an absolute mess right now. So like if you look at New York Mets, like they're 40 and 46 right now. They have to jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams if they want to get into the wild card right now. And that's like, I actually wouldn't be shocked if the New York Mets will be sellers this year at the deadline. I really wouldn't be shocked because, like, right now, especially with the division they're in with the Marlins and Philadelphia well ahead of them, and the Braves, of course, it's not looking good in Flushing right now. So,
no, that's fair. Here's what I'll say about the Mets and like teams like the Padres, Cubs, Brewers, even the Giants. Baseball, it's such a fluid sport. We're not even halfway through, so there's still a ways to go. That's all I'll say. But I do think the Mets, they've had a bad year. Don't get me wrong, by their standards. They have won 4 in a row. They are playing better baseball. Still not a great team this year. But, baseball, it's weird, man. Like, you can go, like, if Miami or Philadelphia or whoever's in the wild card run goes on a really bad losing streak, if you get like a Milwaukee or San Diego that wins 7 or 8 in a row, you're right back in it. So I think while I do agree that Miami is well positioned to make the playoffs this year, I think Philly has to be in consideration too. I wouldn't count out San Francisco, Milwaukee, even San Diego. San Diego has too talented of a roster to be playing this badly. I'm sorry, they just do. And I think if they can get the pitching going, Xander Bogaerts going, I think they can make a run like they did last year too. The Cubs, I don't think they're a great team either, but I think if they can stay around 500 and maybe get on a hot streak here in August, September, I think you can't count them out either. And I even think the Mets, the Mets especially, these next couple weeks are going to be critical for the Mets. If they can play good baseball, maybe they won't sell off all their players. But if they play poorly, I think you will see a situation in which, like you said, they might trade off some of their older players that are on like not great team-friendly deals, like a Marte or something like that. But I think if the Mets can keep winning, take care of business in Arizona against the Diamondbacks and win some series here. It's not like a crazy thought to think they could still challenge for a wild card. They're only 6.5 games back, which that can be made up in like a week if a team plays great or bad. Like it doesn't take much. Just ask the Pirates. The NL as far as wild card goes, I think there's like there's about 8 teams right now that I think they have a legit shot to like challenge for that spot. I would say, not to switch gears, you can still talk about the NL if you want though, but like just heading over to the AL, I think it's a little bit more cut and dry. I do think the teams that are listed here, Tampa Bay, Texas, Minnesota, Baltimore, Houston, and the Yankees, I do think Baltimore and Houston are definitely going to be those 2 wild card teams. If not, like Texas and Cleveland and Minnesota, they'll interchange with each other as far as wild card spots go. But Toronto, you can't count them out either. Boston's hung around despite a lot of injuries. Boston's still about 500. It's pretty impressive. The Angels, to me, I think they're finished now that Mike Trout's out for like a month, 2 months. Knowing him, it's probably the season. They just lost Rendon again to another injury. Shohei Ohtani was taken out of the game with a blister injury. Don't know if he'll be able to pitch anytime. Well, he probably will pitch, but we don't know the severity of the injury. And then, like Seattle, they've had a disappointing year as well. So, it's one of those things, like I said in the NL, you have Seattle and Cleveland about 5 games back of the wild card. If those teams get hot, like Seattle got hot late last year too, they can make a run at another playoff spot. And I do think the Guardians, they're not out of it either. That division, the last 3 teams are not very good. So, Minnesota's just kind of slightly above 500, so it's gonna be a neck and neck finish between the Guardians and Twins as far as that division goes. I mean, the AL, I think I have a clearer picture of who's like really good and who's like not as good, and I think Baltimore and Houston, I think they're definitely making the playoffs this year. Whether the Yankees or Blue Jays do, that remains to be seen. But I mean, that's my outlook as far as the AL goes, though. So.
Yeah, I do want to go back to just one more comment about the NL. And, like, I agree that you could catch – it's a long season. You can catch heat quick. But, like, with San Diego and, the Mets, like, if you think about it, they're both 6 and 6.5 games out of the – so, like, the thing is, my point really is just the fact that you literally have to jump all these teams. So you have to bank on the Phillies, the Giants – and Milwaukee all losing simultaneously while they go on runs. So, like, it's tough to do in baseball because, like, yeah, one team can heat up, but it's really rare to see 3 teams not, like, just fall off a cliff. So I think it's good. I think, like, the work's really cut out for them, especially with Miami. Like, they're 10 games ahead of the Mets in the wild card picture right now. And I'm just saying, like, if the Mets. So they play Arizona. This is literally make or break, because if you lose this series, let's just say you lose 2-1. Let's just say all of a sudden, what are they, 40 and 46? So they'd be 41 and 48, and that's like getting close to the All-Star break. All of a sudden, like it's not looking good. They might be sellers now, and so that's just my point. There, it's gonna be it's make or break right now, because if you I know it's just one series. I know it's early in the season, but the trade deadline, like, it's less than a month away. So it's like you need to win here, because, like, you don't want going into the trade deadline. Like, you want to make sure you're on a roll so you can actually buy, like how the Pirates were in 2018 when they made that huge mistake. But you guys all know what the mistake was. But yeah, I think with the AL, it is a lot more clear cut. Baltimore, I mean, let's get real. They're a really good baseball team. Like Adley Rutschman having a great year. I mean, that outfield with Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, one of the most underrated players in baseball, Austin Hayes as well. He's literally good year in and year out. He's having another good year this year. The team's just loaded with depth right now. Don't forget about my boy Adam Frazier too. So, yeah. I mean, Adam Frazier has 9 bombs already. So, yeah, I think Baltimore, they're as close as a lock you can get. Their back end of the bullpen's the best in baseball. Don't want to hear anything like from a different team. You literally have Yenier Cano, 1.21 ERA, Felix Bautista, 1.16 ERA. Like, there's literally not one bullpen in baseball. In fact, that back end of the bullpen for the first 80-something games has been the best I've seen in quite some time. So, yeah, that back end of the bullpen is honestly absolutely filthy, especially with, when you see Felix Bautista, he's literally 6'8", 285, which is just monstrous for, football, yet alone as a baseball pitcher. When it comes down to those last teams, you got, he was saying about the Angels, Rendon's been hurt. It always just feels like the same thing over and over again with this team, though. It's like, can the pitching stay all 162 games? And, like, Sandoval just got rocked not too long ago. Like, the pitching always just, like, somehow takes a dive at the tail end. So, I think, like, the Angels and the Red Sox would be the odd teams out here. I think the Red Sox have a good team, but, like, I don't think – so you have Chris Sale and Brian Bello. They're both having great years. But, like, I just think, like, I don't know, though. Like, I think they could still hang in there. It's complicated, though, because you still have Seattle, too. I feel like a Seattle on paper with, like, Julio Rodriguez, Jared Kelenich's having a good year. I mean, their rotation's pretty nice. It's going to – I think if – out of those 3 teams, like, it's going to be a race. It's going to be a race. I can't pick one now. If I had to play it safe, I'd say the Yankees would get in. They just have a lot of firepower, I guess. But, like, who knows? Like, it could really go anywhere from here because, like, Toronto, like, Bo Bichette's having a career year. Vlad's always good. Whit Merrifield's an all-star this year. So I think, like, Toronto's pitching's a little iffy. I think that's what separates them from, the other 2 teams I mentioned. But, like I said, who knows? Like, Seattle could catch fire. Yankees could catch fire. Like, I don't know. Who do you think would take that last spot? Like, if I had to pick right now, it'd be the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because like you still have to consider like the Guardians and Twins. I know they're not like having great years, but if one of those teams like flip flops, they're like all of a sudden like in the race too. So I'd probably say Yankees, or Blue Jays probably. They're probably the last two teams though. But I just wanted to say something about Mike Trout real quick though. Like I'm just looking at Baseball Reference. He's averaged 79 games played the past 3 years. I'm including this year as well. And like my point is like it's just like it's not all of it's not his fault. I get it. Injuries happen. Like it's not like let me get hurt today and miss 3 months. Like that's no one ever says that. But it's just like frustrating to watch because the guy was pretty durable his first like 8 years of his career.
Oh,
incredibly durable. And after 2020, he just never plays. Like he played 36 games in 2021, played 119 last year, and to his credit, he played almost every game this year. But now he's probably gonna miss. It said like 48 weeks, so at minimum he's gonna miss a month. Realistically, he's probably gonna miss 2 months, and by then, if the Angels are out of it, they might just shut him down for the season. So you're talking about him missing pretty much the equivalent of like maybe like a season and a half, really, if you like roughly, not exactly, but if he does end up not coming back this year, you're talking about him missing equivalent of a season and a half to injury. That's just really tough, man. And then like once again, it just puts pressure on Shohei Ohtani to perform night in and night out, have to pitch every fifth day, and then have him hit all his home runs. Like it's just like it's asking a lot, and I think the Angels they try to win. Like I always see it. They just do a horrible job of trying to win. Like their pitching's never great. Their offense is like it's good, but it's too reliant on Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout a lot of times. And like I think once again we're gonna see with Shohei Ohtani like he's gonna have to pitch great every fifth day, and he's gonna have to drive in runs every other 4 days. Like I just don't see them staying afloat now, especially if you lose Trout and Rendon. Like that, those are two big bats, and yeah, I mean you're paying Anthony Rendon all this money not to play at all. Like he's barely played with his contract with the Angels. I think
he's getting paid like $40 million a year.
I think his first year he played like out of 60 games he played like 53, but outside of that year, let me look real quick. Yeah, he played 52 out of 60 in 2020, which is okay, but if we look. He's played 58 games in 2021, 47 in 2022, 43 in 2023. So I mean,
but like on top of that too, when he does play, like look at his numbers.
No, he's not good. He's just not.
Like when you I was in 2019. Like if you take Bellinger and Yelich out of baseball. In fact, you can make the argument he may have been the best player in baseball that year, especially knowing that they won the World Series. Anthony Rendon was that good of a ball player that year. I mean, especially just seeing them actually reach the pinnacle, win the World Series that year, especially after losing Bryce Harper. But like that's besides the point with like Anthony Rendon. It's just like he signs the big contract, but it's like it's not even that he got hurt. It's just like. It's honestly sad to see because I was always been kind of a fan of him, but like it's like when he does play, it just the pop just isn't the same when he played with Washington, and I just don't know if it's because like all the constant on and off the IR, but like it's just like Anthony Rendon as a whole. Like I want to see him turn it around, and he had like glimpses this year. I saw a game in Cleveland this year. He hit one off the wall. He had a really good game that game. And I want to see him turn it around, but like he's been hurt constantly. And then Mike Trout too, he's hurt right now too. And you said something about them trying to win. It's like the Mets, like they're like the Mets of the other side. Like you go out, you got Rendon that 1 year, you extend David Fletcher after his all-star caliber season, and it's honestly a shame because they, like you said, they try. But it just, for some reason, it just doesn't get pieced together. Like even picking up Brandon Drury, Hunter Renfroe this year. Those are good signings, and that's why they're better than they are last year. But then all of a sudden, you get these players. You get production out of Renfroe. You get production out of Drury. But guess what? Mike Trout's hurt. Anthony Rendon's hurt. They're literally relying on Shohei Ohtani and how he's been doing this year. So, in my opinion, I think that they are pretty. I don't want to count them out completely yet. Anything can happen. Like, I think they're in better position than how like the Mets have been, especially knowing they're 6 out and the Angels aren't. But at the same time, losing Mike Trout and losing Anthony Rendon, even though he hasn't been amazing, it just it kind of hurts the team, and it's a shame because you're actually getting production out of Drury and Renfroe this year. You're getting production out of a lot of your minor players. So, yeah. Honestly, though, there's no one's taking that division other than the Rangers though this year, and we talked about it on the podcast earlier. But that team's legit this year, and I said earlier that they were for real, and like they're not. They're actually proving me right. I actually had a good take for it. So sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm off. I guess I've been on for that one, and I'm gonna stay with the take. They're taking that division too. I think Houston could heat up, but like at the end of the day, they've just been that good.
No, okay. So a disclaimer for you: that Houston's only 2 games back right now.
I'm still taking Texas.
Okay, no, I'm just saying. Like I know that Houston, they got off to a slow start too, but they're within striking distance. So I just want to throw that out there though. But just going back to the Angels point, like you reminded me, it's the Anthony Rendon thing. It's not exactly like cut and dry to what happened earlier, but it just reminds me of when they traded for Josh Hamilton, and he was coming off an MVP caliber year with Texas in 2012. He had 43 home runs, 128 RBIs. Bad 285. That's a great year, but I mean, he never really materialized for the Angels either. Ended up only playing 3 seasons. His first year wasn't very good by his standards, and then he barely played the next 2 years, and he was pretty much done. So I just say all that to say that Anthony Rendon, for a 3-year stretch, has made $107 million, and all he has to show for it is a 1 WAR. $34 million a year on average. I mean, that's just not going to get it done. And it's not his fault. I'm not saying that, but I mean, when you pay someone that much money and like, that's just for 3 years. They have him locked up for longer than 3 years. And this is why I go back to this all the time. This is why you don't give guys who are over the age of 30 10-year deals. I'm sorry, you just can't do it. And like you're seeing, like they just don't. They 9 times out of 10 they almost never end up living up to the contract. They just don't. Now, if he was 26, I think that would make more sense. But like giving a 32-year-old guy a 7-year contract, $245. They're still going to be paying for his salary 3 years from now. So you can cut him if you want. But I mean, it's dire straits in LA and Anaheim to be exact. Quite frankly, if I were the Angels, depending on how these next couple weeks go, if you feel like you're out of it, I would like clean house. I would trade Shohei. I would trade Mike Trout. I don't know. That's probably not likely because he's hurt. But I mean, I would like consider doing a rebuild because like it's just not clearly their plan and the players they have in place right now. It's just not good enough to win right now, and I don't think it ever will be as long as you have that same core. And rebuilds are no fun. I'm a Pirates fan, I know, but I think the Angels. I think they just need to like just blow it up, start from scratch, like replenish the farm system, get prospects in, and see where you go from there. I don't know. Like they're that team, the Angels. They're in that no man's land space. You're not terrible, but you're not a good team either. You're mediocre, and like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So that's very bleak. I'd rather be terrible than be mediocre because at least you know where you're standing. But if you're mediocre, like it's just you have nowhere to go. So
yeah, I think like if it were up to me, I wouldn't blow it up yet, just because like. It depends on what happens next year with the offseason to me. Because you're having players like Mickey Moniak who's like now starting to really come into his own this year. He's having an incredible season. And Mike Trout too. Like he missed some of last year. He still had over 40 home runs last year too. I'm not going to count him out either. He throughout his career he's been durable too. So I'm just going to bank on Mike Trout just being Mike Trout. He's just a generational talent. Anthony Rendon, on the other hand, like I just don't know because like you have to keep him because of the contract. If you buy him out, that's just going to be another hassle. So, like, I'd keep him at this point. That's the one good thing about not having any salary cap in baseball. But, like, at the same time, with Anthony Rendon, like, I don't know, like, when you think about why they signed him, like, he really made the best out of his last year on contract with the Nationals. He was, I think third in MVP voting, I believe.
Yeah,
he was third in MVP voting, and on top of that, like, the Angels had to give him a lot of money because he wanted to go back. I'm pretty sure he wanted to go back to Texas. Texas was really in the running to get him because he's from Texas. He's right down the street from Arlington, and on top of that, he went to Rice, too. So he wanted to go to Texas. It was the only way the Angels could get him was to give him that money. And they bought into it, and that's the thing. And it's one of those things where, they try to win, and they've made right moves. Like, they won the thing to get Shohei Ohtani. I mean, they drafted Mike Trout. Getting Renfroe and Drury, those are good signings. Making the trade for Brandon Marsh for Mickey Moniak. I mean, what a trade. Reed Detmers right now, like, he's a good pitcher. That was a good draft pick right there. You also have, Patrick Sandoval, who looks like he has potential. It's just something just not clicking with the team, and it's kind of like the Mets. Like, you have all these players, but there's just some players don't have production. Some players are out for the year. Like, it's one of those things. And that being said, that's my TED Talk on the Angels. Going back to the Rangers and Astros, I did mention, like I said, like, they're my pick still to win the division. But, like, the Astros, the Astros are the Astros. They can win whenever they want. But, like, with Yordan being on and off the IL and stuff like that, I just think the Rangers have been such a consistent team. And if they could really attack during the trade deadline, get another starter. Like, even then, though, like, if you look, I mean, Dane Dunning, his ERA is under 250. Same with Nathan Eovaldi, has a crap ton of strikeouts. John Gray, we were just talking about it before the podcast started. Like, he actually had some good years for Colorado in the most hitting ballpark and, like, probably the worst pitching ballpark in the league. And, like, he's proving his worth this year. I mean, his ERA is under 330 this year. And even Andrew Heaney's been a good fourth guy. Martin Perez, not so great. Will Smith's been good in the bullpen. I think they need a couple more bullpen arms. But, like, if you look, Texas, on the other hand, I wrote some things down. So they're batting 274, which is tied for the Braves in average. They've had 492 RBIs, 513 runs, which is first, and 839 hits, which is first in all of those. And then if you look at, like, just some of the production, like Leody Taveras is having a breakout year, highly touted prospect, good speed, good defense, good power. He's batting over 300. Same with Ezekiel Duran as well, who could literally play anywhere. And then you have Corey Seager, batting 355, Marcus Semien, 277, 11 home runs. And then Adolis Garcia with 71 RBIs this year, just driving all those players in. I just, like, yeah, their depth is just out of this world. And don't forget, too, Jonah Heim's the starting catcher, and Josh Young is also the starting third baseman this year for the All-Star game. So Josh Young, I believe he's a rookie, too. I think he could run away with Rookie of the Year. So it's looking good for Texas right now. Houston, on the other hand, they're catching fire. Only 2 games back. Jose Abreu is starting to get his swing back. Like Jose Abreu, he didn't get his first home run until May. Now he's starting to play a little bit better. Kyle Tucker's starting to play a little bit better. Jose Altuve starting to heat up a little bit. So they're not out of it. I think both those teams make the playoffs, though. Those are 2 playoff teams, regardless of win the division. I just think that the Rangers are going to stay the course. They haven't had any injury issues. So if I had to pick, I'd probably go with the Rangers. But like I said, it also, like, trade deadline, we've seen teams, like, just change drastically there. Like, when the Dodgers got Adrian Gonzalez at the trade deadline, for example, like, that team was turned upside down. So you just never know what can happen at the deadline, and it could really make or break a team. Like, even with the Atlanta Braves back in 2021, that team was nowhere near like anywhere close to a World Series. Obviously, they were a playoff team, but, like, you get Jorge Soler, and you trade for him, struggling on the Royals. He ends up being the World Series MVP. So, like I said, it's make or break at the deadline. As in terms of who's going to run away with that division, it just depends on whatever happens at the trade deadline, in my opinion. But as of now, I'd probably go with the Rangers there.
No, fair enough. I mean, as far as baseball goes, I think we pretty much touched upon all the major things happening right now. I mean, the Pirates, I guess, just for the local perspective, they lost again yesterday in epic fashion, as they usually tend to do, to the Dodgers. What else is there to say? They're just not playing good. I mean, I don't know what else to tell people. They're not a good team. I said that when we did our podcast predictions with Ben. I said 70. They were going to win 70 games, and I think they're still going to win 70 games. But I just the mass hysteria when they started out, they swept the Red Sox, and I think they won the series against the Reds or something like that. And then it was just like it was ridiculous. And it was just like 2 series, and people were Bucko fever. It was just like we have to like keep expectations in check, especially for a team that's rebuilding. And I don't want to generalize, but I think people got caught up in like the 28th start and the Brian Reynolds contract extension, and Derek Shelton got extended, and rightfully so. I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. Like, if you're excited, you're excited. Like, that's your right to be a fan. But I mean, I knew there was going to be regression at some point. Anyone that thought they were going to play at that pace the entire year is fooling themselves. And just to see it crash and burn so quickly, that's probably the most disappointing part. But I mean, I expected some regression. I thought it'd be like slow throughout the year, but I mean, it's all come crashing down. I mean, the offense is inconsistent. I mean, outside of McCutchen, you really can't rely on anyone to really do anything. Okay, I'll throw in Sawinski because he's hitting a lot of home runs at a high level. I have to give him credit for that. Brian Reynolds, I mean, he's batting like 271. I expect a little bit better than that, but I mean, the power. I know you homered yesterday, but I mean, the power has been non-existent since the first week of the season. It doesn't help that O'Neal Cruz has pretty much hardly played this year. First, Carlos Santana, he's an older guy. He's had his bright moments, but he's also gone on massive slumps as well. The offense is what it is. It's not very good. I mean, outside of like a few guys you can count on for the most part, it's suspect at best. And like the rotation outside of Keller is just really inconsistent. And part of that's youth. I understand that, and I don't know what to tell you. It's just the bullpen's okay. I mean, outside of Bednar, I mean, who do you really trust? I really can't say a lot of guys. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's not an ideal situation right now. I mean, they're like on a 75, 76 win pace. So if you told me that at the beginning of the year, they would win 75 or 76 games, I would say, okay, I'll take that. But it's just been like frustrating to see how it's unfolded here. You start out so fast, and then like you lose 10 in a row, whatever it was, and you had that awful May where like no one hit. And I think once again, part of the problem. I know like I'm talking a very long time. I'll turn it over to you though. But I mean, once again, Connor Joe, like G1 Bay, Austin Hedges,
Rodolfo Cash. I can name guys all day long, but those guys aren't starters. They just aren't. They have. I don't want to say they have no business being a starter, but if you put those guys on a contending team, those guys would probably be the 24th or 25th best guy on the roster, and that's being kind. Like it's no disrespect towards any of those guys. They're pros for a reason. They have some talent, but it's not starting talent. It's just not. And Connor Joe was a solid bench player in Colorado. The numbers were good, but when you play every day, you get exposed, and he's been exposed. Rodolfo Castro, I think it's safe to say he's not really an everyday guy. He can't play shortstop. That's just fact. Austin Hedges, spare me the pitch framing talk. The Pirates have had a team ERA of 5 since May, so clearly what he's doing isn't working that well. So I don't want to hear that argument either. So he's not even batting over 200 either, which is like absurd. I understand catchers aren't really supposed to be great hitters, but
you can do better than 170. I'm sorry, that's just reality. And yeah, I mean, there's just no point in getting mad over it. Like, they're just not a good team. Like, I don't know what else to say. So.
Yeah, no, they're really not. Like, especially after talking about Texas and Houston, then going to the Pirates. Like, you can kind of just see the polarization. The only thing that's really keeping them in the playoffs is the fact that they're in that division, especially with how the Cardinals have been playing and how they've had literally zero pitching the entire season. In fact, like, I can't. It's actually mind blowing that they're actually worse than the Pirates this year. But my thing with the Pirates. It's just the same mold with, like, the whole management and stuff. First things first, I will say this. They have had a lot of injuries. I mean, they signed Yorlin Garcia, who's a solid relief pitcher. He's actually built himself up a pretty solid career. Out for the year. He's probably going to be out for the year. You have O'Neal Cruz have that slide, which I could get into the slide. It just wasn't a good slide. That's all I'll say about it. But, like, now he's out, too, and it's a shame because, like, he's probably, other than Sawinski, the best power bat that they'd probably have in the lineup. And it's just like, yeah, and then also another one is G-Man Choi, who's been hurt. Like, if G-Man Choi's there, you don't see Connor Joe every day. You don't see Rodolfo Castro every day. Like, those are platoon players. Now they have to play every day because G-Man Choi is hurt. So, but, like, what's going to be weird is going to be when G-Man Choi comes back now. Because he's going to be back any day, pretty soon. So, like, what does the team do? Because Henry Davis has been performing. Nick Gonzalez has been barreling the ball, seeing the ball great. You can't send one of those players down. And it's just like, and I just know they're going to send one of those two down. I just know it. It's just like, the obvious pick would be to cut ties with Hedges or just to send down Castro. But there's just something in the back of my mind they're going to say, oh, like, yeah, we're going to send down Henry Davis, or we're going to send down, because, like, I don't know. Or Triola, too's been good. Like, I just think, like, you just can't send down one of those players, but I just know that it's going to be Triola. It's going to be Triola, Davis, or not Eric Gonzalez.
Gonzalez.
What's his name? Nick Gonzalez. Those are going to be one of the three that gets sent down, and it's going to be an absolute shame. But, like, yeah, I just think as a whole, the Pirates team, at least it's better than last year. Like, but at the same time, it's kind of been same old. Rodolfo Castro about a 176 last month. I mean, it was probably one of the worst. Like, just going to a lot of games, just eye test, probably, like, the worst stretch I've ever watched a player have. I don't know if it's because I saw Castro have a good tail end of the year and saw him start off the season batting 276 with 6 home runs. I think it's just doing that, then all of a sudden, like, just, like, dropping off a cliff. But I don't know. That's and then Austin Hedges. I mean, he's not even batting 180 right now. It's crazy. He got his average up to upper 170s, though.
Upper 170s.
So the thing is, like, when Hedges first came into the league, like, he actually started off pretty good hitting-wise, and he just, like, kind of sunk. But, like, I just think, like, this year it's just not working out for him. And, like, yeah. It's just, like, they're not even major league at-bats. Like, that's the thing about it. And it just, yeah. It's a shame to see. But, yeah. I'm sure he's a great guy. But he's just not like a major league player right now, and it just, yeah.
I do want to preface. So I called out Connor Joe, Hedges. I don't hate those guys. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But they're just not big league caliber everyday good players. They're just not.
They're not.
And like you said, some of these at bats. I've watched the games with Tony. Like, these guys just swing away at every pitch. Like, they don't even work the count.
Especially
like,
Castro this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like swing away, and they're like not even strikes. They're balls in the dirt. Like, it's just like, come on. And it's just like one of those things. Like, and then you have, I didn't even mention, like, you have Velasquez, who had a solid start to the year. One of your starters, he's gonna be out for the year too.
Yeah, he's another one who got hurt.
And then Rich Hill is. Rich Hill, he'll give you a good start here and there, and then he'll, like, blow up. And Oviedo and Ortiz, like, they're the same. Like, they'll give you a good start, two good starts, and they'll give you 2 bad starts. There's no consistency. And Roansy Contreras, to me, he might be. This might be a stretch, but he might be the most disappointing Pirate this year. Just considering, like, last year was solid. Like, you saw the upside, and then this year, outside of the month of April, he's been terrible all year. Even in the bullpen, he's been bad. And like, I looked last night on Baseball Reference after they lost yesterday. His ERA since April's 8. Like that's just not going to work, man.
That's not a major league pitcher.
It's not.
And another thing too, I saw. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Did you notice his velocity yesterday?
It went from 99 earlier in the year to 92. That's a red
He's
flag.
throwing his fastest pitch last year was 93. Or last night was 93.
That's a red flag. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a red flag.
And like his slider too, like his slider's low 80s now. Like he used to get that thing almost up to 90.
Right.
It's just like for a major league hitter, seeing an 82 slider. Like here's the thing: if you throw an 88 slider and it's like over the plate, it's tough to hit. But if you're throwing an 82, like it's gonna get smashed. And did you see what David Peralta did last night? I mean, he put that ball like 10 feet, like 10 rows into the stands, and like 406 to dead right. So like I know 406 is in the farthest home run, but when you're hitting it to dead right and you're pulling it and all your power's going that way, that's a poke. That's a poke.
Yeah,
and there's a reason why baseball stadiums are designed that way, because you get the most power going straight ahead. But like, yeah, it just. I agree. Roansy Contreras has been the biggest disappointment this year, and I personally think he has good stuff. But what I saw last night was not good stuff.
No,
usually he does.
I would say at this point, I think you have to pull Alek Manoah with him. I think you have to send him away for a couple months, have him regain his confidence, because that's clearly shot. I mean, it's just not there. And I think maybe in September, if you want to call him back up, maybe have him in the bullpen, do an inning here or there, and just like maybe going into next year, build up his confidence, have him start the bullpen next year too. And if he's shown that he's gotten like out of this funk that he's in for whatever reason it may be, maybe you put him back in the rotation. But he can't start right now. Like he's not a starter right now. He's just not. And I don't know what happened. He's not even a major leaguer right now. The way he's pitching, he should be DFA'd. But he's 23 years old. So and I saw what he did last year. And what he did in that very short sample size in 2021, like you have to keep him around and figure it out. Like it's not really an option. Like you don't. It's not like you have a litany of pitchers in AAA to call up to replace him. Like you have to figure it out with him and hope that he gets back on track. And it might be another Mitch Keller situation. I mean, if you remember, Mitch Keller wasn't very good his first couple years. I mean, people were calling him a bust. People were getting ready to get rid of him. Sometimes it takes years. I'm not saying this is going to be for Contreras, but some guys they're just slower to get it going. And I think you have to be patient. As frustrating as it is to watch him pitch right now, it's not very good. It's actually really bad, actually. But I think he has enough talent where he can like overcome this, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. And it's still with the Pirates too that he overcomes this. So
yeah, it's just like it's just a shame to see some like. To see someone with a fastball that fast, like I literally played high school with someone that threw harder than that, and he played for LSU, so obviously he was a stud. But it's just like I can't hit Rossetti Contreras, but I'm just saying it's a shame to see someone go from like 90, from like upper 90s to someone that is like not even the same velo as a college pitcher, and like his strong suit is because of his velocity. That's one of his strong suits is velocity. And, like, he doesn't have it right now. And, like, I don't know. The only good news is he's 23 years old. Let's think about it. Dallas Keuchel, when he first came into the league, he was, older than Rossetti Contreras, obviously. And he was not that good. And the list goes on of pitchers that weren't good when they first came into the league, including Jake Arrieta, who literally didn't have his first good season until he was in his late 20s, early 30s. And another player is Jacob deGrom, who literally didn't debut till 26. So what I'm saying is obviously what Justin said, you can't DFA the guy, but he cannot be pitching right now in the major leagues. You cannot He threw BP last night. Literally, he threw batting practice. It was a 4-2 game, and he was like, "Hey, what's up, JD? You want to hit a 3-run homer to take the lead?" And literally left one right over the plate to arguably could be a Hall of Fame player in JD Martinez, and he just rocked him. So the thing is, he just can't be in the majors right now, and yeah, it just. Chase DeYoung too. I just wanted to mention him too. He had a really good year last year. I mean, his ERA I think was under 3, but then this year, dumpster fire. Same with the majority of the bullpen, sadly. My boy Johan Ramirez, though, he's one bright spot in the season.
No, they have a couple guys in the bullpen that they've had decent years. Him, Dari Moreta.
Moretta's been good.
Yeah,
Moreta for Newman was a great trade.
Yeah. No, it was. But I mean, here's the silver lining with the Pirates this year. So, really, at this point, all that really matters is like development of Henry Davis and Nick Gonzalez at this point. I mean, and then if you eventually call up Eddie Rodriguez this year too, I mean, I hope they do, but we'll see. But I mean, let's say that Gonzalez and Davis, like, not that they'll hit 300 the rest of the year, but they show you like legit signs of being an everyday starter. So you have two guys right there. You throw in Brian Reynolds, Jack Sawinski, you got Ke'Bryan Hayes. Probably bring back McCutchen next year, I would think. Maybe you draft Dylan Cruz. I don't know. That's just hypothetical. And maybe Eddie Rodriguez is actually a solid catcher. That's 7 or 8 guys right there in your starting lineup. I like that lineup a lot. I think the potential's there to be a very good lineup. But the problem is, like, we're talking about potential and not actual, like, production. And I think that is the one positive spot. Like, I think the Pirates next year, if they actually, like, call up guys that can, like, actually hit the baseball and they can actually, like, fill out their bench with a Connor Joe, with Palacios, with a Tucupita Marcano, guys that are actually good enough to be on the bench, not everyday guys. And I think if you can sign maybe a pitcher or two and hope that the guys that come up, like a Priester or a Solamento or someone like that, comes up and pitches well, I think next year, I don't want to be this guy, but I think there is a scenario in a trillion multiverses out there that the Pirates can maybe be a wild card team next year. That's all I'm saying. But they have to, first of all, but a lot has to go right, and they also have to spend money too. And they also have to draft and develop well. And those are 3 really big asks for the Pirates, as we all know. But I mean, if they can maybe do 2 out of 3 of those things, and hope that their prospects pan out, maybe next year is a year that they somehow make the playoffs. I'm not setting that in stone. Don't quote me on this, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and I do want to add, too, I've been impressed with Jack Sawinski's power lately. He's tied his home run total last year already. And defensively, he's been great, too, especially if you look at his WAR stat as a whole. I mean, he's like one of the top guys on the team. I think he's at 2.9 WAR, which is honestly pretty solid, especially halfway through the season. And I also want to say, too, Carlos Santana started terribly this year, but I was looking at the stats, and I said this before he went on his like recent tear in June. And Carlos Santana last year was traded from Kansas City to Seattle in like around June. He had 4 home runs, and then he finished with 15 home runs to end the season from June on. This year, going into June, he had 3 home runs. He has 9 now. So my thing is, like, Carlos Santana has been a second-half player for the past couple years, and I just wanted to say, like, I've liked the production lately out of Carlos Santana, but at the same time, like, the fact that, Santana and McCutchen have still been, like, their 2 best players is just shouldn't be the case, but hopefully, like Henry Davis, Nick Gonzalez, Jack Sawinski, they all keep it up. Hopefully Brian Reynolds can find his power again. Hopefully Ke'Bryan Hayes can not win just a Gold Glove, but can hit as well. So yeah, that's just my food for thought on them. And I don't want to talk for too much, but we're talking about like teams of the future. So obviously I could say that the Orioles are set for years. I mean, you got Gunnar Henderson, you have Grayson Rodriguez, 2 of your best prospects coming up already. Adley Rutschman, too. And then you also have Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, Ryan Mountcastle. I mean, these guys aren't even 30 years old yet.
So they just called up Colton Cowser yesterday, too. He's like one of the best prospects in baseball.
He's batting over 300 in the farm system.
Yeah, their farm system's deep, man. They're going to be good. Like, once again, it's going to come down to, like, is their ownership going to actually spend money to build around that team and lock up those guys long term? It's gonna have to come down to that because if they can do that, they can be good for a very long time. I do believe that, and hopefully, Grayson Rodriguez, he's been off to a rough start in the majors so far, but I mean the potential's there to be a frontline ace starter. Like, it's there. So hopefully year 2, maybe not this year, like he comes in, is a lot better, and who knows, man. and like Adam Frazier, like you mentioned, the veteran leadership there. He's been solid this year. Has more home runs than I think he's ever had with the Pirates.
He's 9 already.
That's a half joke, but it's kind of half the truth too. But I mean, yeah, they're a solid lineup. They're good. You know, and I really don't have anything else to say other than they're a really good team. I mean, that's
Ruben Urias too. Like, I mean, they're just like Jorge Mateo. They're just a pretty stacked team. Even pitching, like Tyler Wells has been great this year. And, like, John Means has been, like, hurt and stuff, but, like, even he, when he's healthy, is really good. And, like, he's locked in, too. So, but I do want to – I was going to lead to another team, too. So, obviously, I could get into the Diamondbacks. We've talked about them a lot this year, though. Corbin Carroll, obviously, Rookie of the Year right now. But I think this one's crazy, but just seeing how they're playing is the Cincinnati Reds.
No, the Reds. That's a good choice.
Because, like, you have Spencer Steer. I mean, he has 14 home runs already. He's batting .290. You have Jonathan India, who's one of the best second basemen in baseball. Jake Fraley, still young. He's starting to really hit his stride. Matt McClain came out of nowhere. You have one of the best catchers in the NL in Tyler Stevenson. And, like, TJ Friedl, too, is batting over 300. And Will Benson, they got from the Guardians for nothing. He was one of their, higher prospects. He was great in Columbus for AAA. I'm surprised they even pulled him. But, like, that's just to name a couple players. And then, like, if you look at the top of their pitching, Graham Ashcraft, well, I mean, he's not having a good year, but he throws really, really hard. And I think, like, he had one start. His ERA is terrible this year. It's like Contreras. But I think if he could turn it around, like, he has the stuff to be pretty solid. Hunter Green's another one. I mean, he's starting to pitch really good. Luke Weaver, he's still not too old. Like, he's not even 30 yet. So my point is, like, they have, like, a lot of people, like Nick Lodella, too. He's not been pitching good at all. But, like, they have these guys. They're all young pitchers. So my thing is, like, their hitting's been their strong suit, especially in that ballpark. But my point is that if they could just keep that rotation intact, and if they just have that potential, like, if they fulfill that potential, I think the Reds can be, a powerhouse in this division, which is, crazy to say. Heading into the year, I thought they were going to be in a deep, deep rebuild. Right now, they're the best team in the NL Central right now. Like, I still think, like, Milwaukee and stuff like that could, like, just because of their rotation with Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta. I mean, their rotation is pretty strong and stuff. But their lineup on paper, I mean, it's not even that much better than the Pirates, and that's a problem because the Cincinnati Reds right now statistically are the best team in the NL Central, and it's crazy to think about because I don't know if it's like the division's just that bad or like it might be a combination of the division's bad and that the Reds are just playing good baseball right now.
No, yeah, I agree. Listen, like, teams like the Reds and Pirates, you have to realize when your opportunity to win is, and I think you're seeing it now. The Cardinals have had an abysmal year. They've had an awful year by their standards. The Brewers, while they are above 500, I'm not really thrilled with their – I think their team's really not that good either. Their pitching has been, like, what's kept them afloat. But and then you have, I'm missing a third team. The Cubs, yeah, they're under 500 too. And, so I think this is, like, a perfect opportunity for the Reds to win a division this year. And if you can build upon that, and, who knows where you can go from there. But once again, the Reds, they've had a track record of not paying their players, outside of Joey Votto, of course. They need to spend money, too. Like, it's just build upon what you started. And, like, it's amazing. When these small market teams, I understand there's some limitations to spending money with, like, getting big free agents. But when they actually try to win and they put a watchable product on the field, people will show up. It's a crazy concept. I know, right? The Pirates, when they had those 3 years, broke attendance records year after year. The Reds, they're in first place in the division. They've had packed houses ever since. Like, I can remember the past couple of years, the Reds had no one go to the games, and now they have fans. Like, it's the easiest cure in sports. You win games, fans show up. It's really that simple. And I think the Reds, they need to build upon that. And hopefully they do, because that team is really fun to watch. Ellie De La Cruz is a carbon copy of O'Neal Cruz, except he might be a tad bit more talented, and that's not a shot at O'Neal Cruz. He was just a really good prospect. Was thought of as the best prospect in baseball this year. And yeah, they have some real players. And but I do want to briefly mention. So the A's have been getting a lot of flack this year for being awful, and I understand that. But the Royals, just for fun fact, the Royals are only a half game ahead of the A's for the worst record in baseball. So I just want people to realize that while everyone's been clowning the A's because they've gotten rid of all their good players, the Royals have been rebuilding for 5 years now, and they're still nowhere even remotely close to being a competitive team. So I'm just saying, I understand crushing Oakland, going to Vegas. I get that, but I mean, the fact that no one's mentioned how bad the Royals have been has honestly been astonishing to me because they've been awful this year. Awful.
They've been that bad. It goes to show that it's like when your number one guy, Brady Singer, is having the worst year of his career. Brad Keller, not doing so hot. Another one, Jordan Lyles, I think was 0-10 at a point.
0-10.
If those are your top three pitchers, that it's not good. Justin's looking up the stats right now. The team, this is MJ Melendez too and Bobby Witt. Those are your two top prospects. They're both in the game right now. But Bobby Witt and Melendez have potential, but they're not gonna blow you away yet right now. Nick Prada is another one. He came up last year. He looked really good to start, but hopefully he pans out too. But he hasn't been proven that this guy's going to be a star in the MLB yet. So yeah, right now it's an absolute mess there. Oh crap! I accidentally hit my mic. But yeah, it just I think the A's are just. It's tough to say who's in better shape. It's both teams are trying to put a Band-Aid. It's trying to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound right now for both teams. So it's just it's pretty rough.
I would argue the A's are in better shape because if they go to Vegas, the value of the team will shoot up through the roof.
Yeah,
and they'll probably also try to win too because they're in a bigger market. And Vegas, regardless if the A's still suck while in Vegas, it's just Vegas. So there's more allure there. There's more grandeur. We saw with the Golden Knights what they've done in their expansion team. The Raiders have been borderline playoff caliber team since they've moved. So I think the A's will make more of an attempt to actually win. And yeah, I mean it's a shame what they did to their fan base in Oakland, but I mean that's business for you. The owners really don't care about fans. They really don't. It's about the bottom line dollar. So, but I mean just going back to the Royals real quick. Their best hitter is Michael Garcia. He's batting .296. Bobby Witt, compared to last year, is kind of having a down year. Their pitching rotation is horrific. I mean, their team ERA is 5.29. Their best starter is probably Daniel Lynch, and that's not really saying much. You got Brad Keller, who's supposed to be a piece. He's on the IL. Brady Singer's had a terrible year, like we mentioned.
Worst year of his career.
Jordan Lyles.
It's supposed to be his best.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Lyles is 1-11 with an ERA almost 7. Zach Greinke's pretty much on his last leg as a pitcher in baseball. Has an ERA of 5.44. Listen, their future is bleak. I mean, and that's crazy to think because they've been rebuilding for a long time now. And their best prospect was Bobby Witt. And I mean, he's been okay so far, in his career. But I mean, if that's the only guy you have to show for in all these years of rebuilding, that's a problem. And to me, that tells you haven't drafted and developed well, and they haven't. And there's a reason why. Prior to 2015, the Royals were bad for 30 years. They're just not. Outside of those 2 years, they're just not a good franchise. And that might be a hot take. I don't know if that is, but they're just not a good franchise. And they caught fire in 2014 to 2015. I'll give them credit for that. They had a solid core, but they haven't been able to replicate it since. And it's just once again, I think it's a solid fan base, but I mean, why would you go to watch them lose every night? There's just no incentive to do so. All you're doing is putting more money into the pockets of the owners. So,
and it's one of those things that too, there's just teams that don't develop talent right. The Pirates, the Royals, and then the Mariners. What they all have in common is they went on massive droughts, including the Mariners too. I know you have Julio Rodriguez this year, but even if you look at the Mariners team, Teoscar Hernandez was a Blue Jay. Ty France came up with the Padres. J.P. Crawford came up with the Phillies. Eugenio Suarez came up with the Reds. Luis Castillo came up with the Reds. Marco Gonzalez came up with the Cardinals. Literally, all these players that they have are players that they, other than Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez, were players that, they got elsewhere. And, the Royals were kind of the same way, too, getting Lorenzo Cain. But it was kind of like they caught lightning in a bottle. You got Perez. You had Eric Hosmer. You get Lorenzo Cain, who ends up being a stud, who came out of, the Milwaukee Brewers. And who else? Mike Moustakas was another one. So what happened was they actually had some players that just hit the mark. And obviously they haven't had a player hit the mark in quite some time because, like we've been saying, it was weird. Like in 2019 to 2021, they went out and got Carlos Santana and stuff like that. And it looked like that they were trying to put an okay product on the field, especially with Jorge Soler having the 48 home run season in 2019. But yeah, and it's just they're just one of those teams that are just known for not developing talent, and it just so happened they caught lightning in a bottle in 2015, similar to the Pirates when they went on their 2013 to 2015 stage where McCutchen and Starling Marte and Garrett Cole and signing AJ Burnett. So yeah, the only difference is the Royals won the World Series and the Pirates got screwed by the Major League Baseball because of the wild card game. But yeah, that's all I have for my talk on teams developing talent. Teams that develop talent extraordinarily well. Obviously, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Even though they're not doing good this year, St. Louis always kills it with that. They're just teams that develop prospects better. Even the New York Yankees develop prospects. Aaron Judge was not supposed to be what he is right now. I mean, he was barely a first-round pick. He ends up being unbelievable. Anthony Volpe already has 12 home runs. He came up for the Yankee system. Not to forget Derek Jeter from way back in the day. So they've obviously have a good market too. They don't just spend money; they actually develop talent as well. So, yeah. That's why you'll always see the Yankees and the Dodgers, because you're seeing it with the Mets and the Angels right now. They spend money, but they're not winning. The Dodgers and the Yankees bring people through their system, and they spend money, and that's why they'll always, always, always be in the playoffs. So, and the Astros too have just been a hub for the past 10, 15 years right now. All the way going back to when Hunter Pence came up. You had Springer, you had Correa, you had Jose Altuve, and now, even this year, Yordan Alvarez, you have Kyle Tucker, Christian Javier, Framber Valdez. Do you want me to go on? It's just there's teams that do it and teams that don't, and that's why you're not going to see true change, because even though, the Reds might be a playoff team this year, the cream's going to rise to the top. You're going to see the Astros, you're going to see the Braves, you're going to see the Yankees, and maybe the Yankees anyway, because their division's good. But, the cream rises to the top. The Rays, another team, develops talent. But, yeah, that's just my point, is at the end of the day, the top people are the people that develop talent. It's not just a spending fest. And the reason why the Yankees and Dodgers can stay there is while they're developing talent, they can also pay for players. And then on that off year, you saw the Dodgers win in 2020. So,
yeah, I think there needs to be a salary cap, though. You need to make teams like the Royals and Pirates spend an X amount of money. I just think you do. And until that happens, you're just going to have this imbalance in baseball where the Yankees and Dodgers will be able to spend money while simultaneously developing young players. And it's just a very flawed concept to have. The Astros are the only outlier to this. It's a very flawed concept to tear everything down, build it up from scratch, and hope to win a World Series. It just doesn't happen, unless you're the Astros, of course. That's the rare exception. So, it just puts teams like the A's and Pirates and Royals and Guardians at a competitive disadvantage. And you can say that the owners should spend money too. I agree with that, but until changes are made, they're not going to feel forced to spend money. And it's just one of those things where the Royals are probably always going to be bad, and the Pirates, they might be good for a couple of years, but they're probably going to be bad again pretty soon. So it's just, it's a really screwed up and unfair system, but I mean, it is what it is. That's all I could say. And there's really nothing fans can do about it. You can boycott, do a reverse boycott like the A's did, sell out your ballpark, and the owner just makes more money. Like, it's one of those things. You're at a lose-lose situation. You can't stop going to games because your team sucks. The owner is still going to rake in money. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You can protest. You can get politicians involved. It doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do. So, as just being a fan, you just hope that the owner that's in charge in your front office knows what the heck they're doing, and they're committed to winning. And there's some teams out there, the Braves, Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, although they're doing it's not going great this year. Those are some of the teams that are actually trying to win. And then you have other teams who we've pretty much talked about ad nauseum here on this podcast that are doing the exact opposite. So it's just one of those things that baseball, I think, it needs to be rectified sooner rather than later, though. But that's just my TED Talk, I guess.
Yeah, before we're getting close to like a good wrap-up point, I think, but I do want to say one thing, too, and it just has to do with money, too, and just Oakland as a whole. So I haven't looked into it too much, but I was thinking about it. San Francisco has the Golden State Warriors now, but they originally didn't want them back yet.
Right.
But then they started winning.
Right.
So, like, my question is, like, what would have happened to the Warriors if they didn't start winning? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like a good thought to have because, like, they were in Oracle, which was around, it was built the same year as literally Mellon Arena. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know, just food for thought. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this a topic we should talk about eventually? I don't know. But it's just my thought. It's just like, now that they want them because they win or something like that. It's just like, I don't know. Yeah. That's just ownership for you. Like, I feel bad for A's fans because there are some out there, but it's honestly impossible to be an A's fan because, like, even when they were good, like, you literally had Matt Chapman and Matt Olson, and you had Sean Manaea and Chris Bassett all on the same team in 2019, and now it's just like none of them are there, and it's just like they got rid of all of them, and they didn't get a big return out of it. I mean, they got Christian Pache for Matt Olson. Like, it just, like, I don't know. It just blows my mind. And even the year, like, they had a chance to really make a run, and they decided to trade Yoenis Cespedes to get an extra pitcher and stuff. And I think it was John Lester was in that trade. It was. And it was just like, John Lester's a great pitcher, don't get me wrong. But you need bats in the lineup. And whenever they traded Yoenis Cespedes, they still made the playoffs, but they completely tailed off and were early casualties. So, yeah, that's just another team. They're just not properly run. And hopefully when they go to Vegas, like, okay, so I feel bad for Oakland fans, but at the same time, Vegas will support this team. Vegas is the home of Bryce Harper, Chris Bryant. It's a big city. Like, people actually live in Vegas. People think it's just a gambling place. People actually support sports. Look at the Knights. They were the number one in attendance for, like, the second straight year. And even the Raiders, I think, like, I haven't looked at their attendance too much, but, like, they're supported too. So I think, like, I think baseball will be supported there. So, yeah, that's just my food for thought on it. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I've run out of things to talk about as far as baseball goes. But yeah, I think it's a good point to stop there for today. We talked a lot of baseball. I wanted to get into basketball, but just didn't have the time. We'll probably do that next time we do a podcast. So probably talk about some free agency stuff of that nature, though. But I am like, my voice is like shot, but whatever, it's fine. I love talking sports, doesn't matter. But that was our podcast for this week. Great doing the podcast as always with Tony. Just a reminder, find our show at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever your podcast, just search the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. Check out all of our past guest interviews and just podcasts in general. You'll get buried in content for hours, though. But for Antonio Rossetti, I'm Justin Stewart. We'll do it again in the very near future, folks. Have a great rest of your day, and